Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Just Joe. It's just me today, and today I really wanted to talk about Weapons. Weapons came out last week. I'm fresh off of it. It's Zach Creggor's second movie. He's coming fresh off of Barbarian, which if you haven't seen that, this podcast is not going to be about that, but man, I cannot encourage enough to go watch Barbarian, one of the most surprising and shocking horror movies I've ever seen. Just really one of the most suspense thrilling movies in general I have ever seen, which got me really excited about Weapons. Now, before we get into this, I just want to preface this whole thing by saying I am one of the few people that you are going to encounter who thinks that this movie is okay. I think it's okay. It's an okay movie. And most people, most critics, most reviewers that I'm seeing love this movie. They are all about it. And I'm not telling that those people are wrong. I am just going to say that there is one particular thing about this movie that for me personally is holding this movie back from being great. Before we get into that, I mentioned Barbarian a second ago. Is this movie Barbarian? Absolutely not. Barbarian was one of those special lightning in a bottle movies that the second you finish watching it, you know that you've just completed something very special. And when I saw that Zach Creggor was going to be directing, writing another horror movie, I saw this trailer, man, I was in. This trailer, this premise, this got me. It's the moment I saw it, I was like, yep, I am buying a ticket. I'm going to see this opening weekend. I cannot wait. 17 children from one classroom all go missing one night at 2:17 a.m. in the morning. Everyone is gone, sans one child left in the classroom. All eyes and fingers are pointing at the teacher because there's no other explanation. Discover the truth as to what happened to 17 children. Now that is some sauce. I love this premise so much. And even though I might be lukewarm compared to others on this movie, I think this movie has a lot to love. Josh Brolin, Julia Gardner, Benedict Wong all give awesome performances in this movie. I think I was most surprised to see Josh Brolin in a movie like this. The writing is mostly pretty stellar. I'll get to, again, I keep teasing it, I'll get there in a moment. The cinematography, the shots, very creative. The editing, it's great. It really makes you feel paranoid. It builds the suspense. It builds the thrills, right? And I think that it all works pretty well. Except for one really big thing for me. And it's the narration. This movie is bookended with a narrator. It's a little girl. You never meet this character. She's just a creepy sounding little girl. And I think that this decision to have a narrator, man, does it spoil a lot for me in this movie. And a lot of people who have heard me talk about this already, I've already talked my friends' ears off to death about this. I've said, Joe, you're overthinking it. They're not wrong. What do I mean as far as the narration goes? Plenty of movies have narrators, and it works. Well, first, before I get into my real big thing as to why the narrator here I don't think really works all that well, let's talk about why narration is a thing. Okay, so normally when you have a narrator, it is being told from the perspective of one singular character, and we are getting that character's perspective as to how the story unfolds. Normally the narrator is telling perhaps an audience within the movie about what's going on, or the narrator is aware of us, the audience, the viewers, and is telling us, the viewers, right? Those are usually the two, right? I think if you have a narrator, there should be a narrative reason why it's being narrated to you. Now, narration, other than having a character describe the events of the story from a very unique perspective, from a very specific perspective, right? Other reasons why you might have a narrator is to quickly divulge expository information. If we don't have time to just get into it, a narrator can just quickly let you know what's going on, and it will just place you into the action of the movie. One movie that did this with a silent narrator, Superman. Superman technically has a narration, an exposition scene in the very beginning of its film, and then drops us right into the film. Star Wars, of course, did the whole credits crawl or the narration crawl before Superman. We associate that. That is technically a narrator. The narrator of this movie, as I mentioned before, it's this little girl, and she describes to us what the trailer describes, that there were 17 kids, they were all in a classroom, and one night they all got up at 2:17 in the morning and they all ran away. And it sent the school into a frenzy, right? This is what she tells us. She comes back later in the movie at the very end to kind of just quickly catch us up on what happens after the events of the movie. Now, I have two problems with this. The first one, as I mentioned before, it is usually a character in the movie. The little girl is not a character in the movie, and that can work too. That's fine. But my biggest flag for this is our narrator lies to the audience. I don't mind an unreliable narrator. That's not what this is. The movie just lies to you at one point. Spoilers for Weapons, if that hasn't been clear already. So, at the very beginning of the movie, our narrator describes what happens to these children and drops us right into Julia Garner's character, Justine, right into the action. But the last thing she says before our narrator leaves us is these kids were never seen again. This narration, super creepy, and it puts you in the mood, right? It creates this framework for you for the rest of the movie. So for the rest of the movie, I am thinking to myself, where is this going? Why did no one see the children ever again? At one point, we, the audience, see the children again. Technically, the movie has not lied at this point. The public has not seen these children again. And I'm thrilled about this, actually, at the time when I'm watching. Because now it's building up an expectation. No one ever saw the children again. But the children are in this basement. What's going to happen to the children? My skin is actually crawling thinking about this. Because there was an expectation set for me by the narrator that doom and dread is coming, that whatever the ending of this movie was going to be, it was going to be a tragedy because the narrator told me it was. Quick summary of what happens here toward the end of Weapons. The children went missing because a witch put a spell on 17 children and drew them into her house. At that point, she started presumably taking some of their life energy so that she could stay alive. It's not exactly clear what exactly she's doing. She just makes some offhand references that she needs children in order to stay alive. And given that she's a witch, given that we're all familiar with what witches do, you put it all together. Anyway, someone takes advantage of the witch's powers and makes the kids attack her, which admittedly is a hilarious scene. It is very satisfying to watch these 17 children demonize this witch and chase her through the neighborhood and then rip her apart. I'm not lying. I love that. Even though it wasn't the ending I was expecting, fantastic. Narrator comes back, and the narrator says that at some point, some of the children started slowly learning how to speak again because they were all kind of zombies beyond this point. You lied to us. You just lied to us. Zach, what the hell, dude? I feel like choosing to have the narrator lie to us was a really weird move. And I feel a little betrayed by the movie, if I'm being honest. Am I being over dramatic? Yes. But again, this doesn't really mean I was wrong. The movie purposely built an expectation, and I wouldn't exactly call this a subversion. I call it pulling the rug out from under me, but not in a good way. I want to be surprised in a movie, but also I think that if you lay out breadcrumbs for viewers, for moviegoers, we want to be rewarded with trying to deduce where it is that we're going. I'm picking up the breadcrumbs. I'm seeing what you're laying down for me, storyteller, only to find out that everything you thought you were picking up on, well, it didn't really matter. And while I think you could remove the narration from this movie entirely and still have the same exact movie, I think the more you start to look at the movie under this kind of stress test, the less the script makes sense to me. And it's funny because when I walked out of the movie, I thought my only problem was the narration. But really, the more I thought about the rest of the script, like really nothing stood up to stress. Like the very idea that the kids went missing and no one could figure out, except Justine, apparently, where the kids were, or the fact that Justine was even just a little suspicious of the family who didn't have their child go missing and went there and started putting things together. The fact that this community of police officers, also the fact that the state's not involved for an investigation of 17 missing children, that's wild. Also, we know that there were cameras throughout the neighborhood. That's how we saw that the children all left at 2:17 in the morning. So you mean to tell me that there wasn't another house that captured these kids running toward this house in the middle of suburbia? What? It's supposed to just be a fun horror movie. And you know what? It is. But when you establish rules, when you establish a universe, you really want those rules to hold up for the most part. And I think the longer you look at Weapons, the less it holds up. And ultimately, what I'm coming back to from the very beginning is that's disappointing given what Barbarian is. Barbarian is such a wonderfully crafted movie that this feels like a bit of a step down. I think ultimately this movie is very fun. Weapons is a good time. You should go see Weapons. Even with what I've discussed here today, if you're just encountering it for the first time, you'll still have a good time. Weapons is well crafted at the end of the day as far as its editing, its acting, its cinematography. I've rarely seen doors be used to such scary effect. Not since Paranormal Activity have I been so scared of doors opening and closing. If you were there in 2009, you know what I'm talking about. It was a time. You had to live through it. It looks dumb now. We all agree. Ultimately, I just really get stuck on this narration thing. And, you know, maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, well, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal. Let me just say this. The narration is a framework, right? It's a frame. And if you had a nice family picture that reminded you of a really nice time, but then somebody took that picture and, I don't know, created this neon green flame with clowns and stuff, suddenly your focus is not on the family picture. It is on this ridiculous frame that ruins what is ultimately a nice memory. That's Weapons for me. I wanted more from this movie. I wanted more for Zach Creggor. Again, I think that this movie is a fun time. I think it's pretty good, especially compared to most horror movies out there. This summer has been great for horror, by the way. Together, 28 years later. Like, we are feasting really good right now if Weapons is really the worst what we got. And Weapons is good. It is good. I just wanted Weapons to be great. And I think this one thing is what held it back for me personally. But what do you think? Drop a comment down below, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and be sure to follow us on Threads where we're talking more about movies, and we've got more to come this year, so stay tuned. But until then, may the review be with you.